Okay, today's LinkedIn Live is how to turn your current IAM into an identity auditing machine. And of course, we'll cover why you would want to actually do identity audits. So to make these points, YouAttest has brought in a longtime YouAttest customer, Craig, and also from a lefter, a third-party risk manager, Paul Feather, and then a newly signed reseller partner, William Burkett from Logos. And then, of course, we have the CEO of YouAttest, Garrett Grajek. Greetings, everyone.
Greetings, Ashley. Happiness.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. So first question, I'm going to kick it off over to Paul. So why do enterprises do identity audits? And let's start with compliance. Why do enterprises do identity audits for compliance?
Well, I think any compliance requirement will have a component related to user access and making sure that users have the proper access rights assigned to them so they can do their jobs without having too much or excessive access. So most of the compliance requirements, they'll have more than one control related to user access or identities, but the management of both elevated access and general users, segregation of duties, and some other things. So I know that security guys like to talk about security reasons why they need to do identity access reviews, but from a compliance perspective, those checkbox audits will not happen if you don't have proper identity access reviews.
And William, being the security expert, what are the benefits of identity audits for the security of an enterprise?
Sure. So when you look at what a user has access to, what they can do with that access, or proving what they can do, that is all tied into what is my risk. We look at we look on the cyber side and we say, if we were to have an incident today, how many records, right? We're all fined based on the number of records. We're fined based on data access. All of those come into who can do what. And it also comes into accountability, being able to prove that it was the person that took the action, being able to prove that they not only had access, but authorization, and all those kind of go hand in hand in proving security.
Well, and really the question should go to the actual cybersecurity and compliance practitioner on the call. So Craig, why don't you tell a little bit about what you've been doing the last couple of years and why you have been doing identity audits?
Yeah, sure. So the why part, I think, is the most interesting. And from my perspective, I see the line between pure security and pure, what I would call compliance/privacy, really blurring. I like to say in my environment, and I've actually said this at previous places, that I play the best supporting actor role with our compliance and privacy teams. But for me, it all started with SOX controls. Right, I was asked to do our SOX controls on a quarterly basis. I'd get a print, oftentimes a printout, a PDF, and I'd have to compare these documents in a PDF format. And where I often struggled was I could look at these and kind of get a sense like, yeah, I feel like these are these accounts or this access is legitimate. But I always felt that oversight needed to be pushed down closer to the managers, the people that either manage the applications or the people that manage the users that actually had access. And that oversight or that attestation needed to happen sooner. So you can imagine somebody had access at the beginning part of a quarter. Maybe they still had it at the end of the quarter. Maybe they didn't. And we potentially could be blind for that. But from the time that they get that access till the time that it's actually brought up and attested needed to be narrowed. And that's sort of how I got involved in this. And frankly, it's expanded. It's gone beyond SOX for me now. It's really in clinical trials. I have the exact same use case for our clinical trial access. When someone gets access to a group, or gets group access, or gets access to some clinical trial data that they may not have, that could be devastating to us. So we need to be able to sign off that people that have access should have access and be able to do that very quickly. And I think the final area that I'm seeing some traction, and I spoke with Garrett about this earlier, is contingent worker access. right? I have never seen contingent workers managed well at any company that I have ever worked for. They're always treated differently than FTEs. Oftentimes the businesses will bring them in and no one has any way to manage them. And so knowing when someone still has access, do the managers know? Can the managers attest that these people should either A, still have access, or B, should have been terminated, access should have been terminated, is a blind spot to a lot of companies. So I'm seeing a lot of traction here too.
Yeah, interesting.
And can you expand on? I'm sorry, actually, can you expand on that, Craig? You were saying the way people were doing their access reviews, where they're just basically getting a printout from the IAM manager saying, "Here you go." You know, these. Okay. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So we get a printout, which was a PDF, which is extremely hard to massage and work with if you want to, get the columns to line up or whatever the case may be. From the beginning of the quarter, now you have a new PDF at the end of the quarter. And honestly, it was probably the thing I despised most about the job, having to go back and, because I understood how important it was to get it right.
Yeah. And Paul, I'm sorry, Ashley.
I was just about to jump in, Garrett. I got to jump in here. So holy moly. So 16 years in public accounting, right? And I was on the internal side and external side. And these companies, they would actually just hate having to do user access reviews. And I had one client said, "Sorry, you can't see our user access review because it's in process." And I said, "Okay, I'll be here a week. I'd love to have it whenever you're finished." It took them like 8 to 10 weeks just to get through it. And it was not PDFs. They did have Excel spreadsheets, but they had like 600 spreadsheets that made up the review that they would email out to people, get them to review it and send it back, and then consolidate all of it to figure out what access needed to be removed or changed because of a segregation of duties violation, or some guy left the company and was still in the system. So it was most painful, very inefficient, just total waste of time. And the people would never review the spreadsheets and send them back. So these guys are always hassling people for spreadsheets to get them back. It was terrible. So I truly feel your pain and what you were going through. This is all for SOX. I did a lot of SOX audits over the years. And that was just one thing that these guys, they would do it annually because it was so painful. And it would take them, 2 months to get a review done. It's terrible.
So Garrett, what are these tools called that are supposed to help these enterprises with these audits?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Paul and William, they're supposed to be under IGA, right? We're all supposed to be, everyone's covered because we have an IGA product. Okay, but the truth is most people use IGA for provisioning and lifecycle management because it's really, really good for that. And they are. They're good for that. But when it comes to the access reviews, people are like, that module is too much. That module is too much, or they just wind up never implementing it, or et cetera. And Craig, that's why you're on a call. That's the truth.
Yeah.
They just don't, no one does it,
Well, I mean, go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
No, you take it. Your real world. Yeah.
Paul was spot on. I've looked at these in the past, but they're an 800-pound gorilla. Oftentimes, my experience was when you look at these products, and I don't want to call anybody out and finger anybody, but oftentimes the price to buy those modules or the whole application was more, in some cases, astronomically more than our revenue generating applications like Salesforce or NetSuite, which is that's a non-starter right there.
There you go. Yeah.
True.
So there it is. It falls under IGA, but most people don't use the user access review identity audit part of their IGA, even if they have it at all.
Yeah. Garrett, to that point, I also think that attestation wasn't a thing way back. Now it's becoming a thing. When I went through my HITRUST audit and my ISO audit, they asked very specifically, are you attesting to this? And you're seeing this come front and center now.
Yeah, I'll throw in here on an SEC filer. So it's public companies. There is one guy that has to sign off on that, and it is a punishable offense if he says, we have to attest to this. This is true and correct. These controls are in place, and I I wouldn't say I've seen the guys in the orange jumpsuit, but it's true that it's truly something that they can not only just be fined for or derogatory for a stock price or something of that nature, but there can be some other implications for saying that something's in place and it wasn't in place. And I personally have seen companies that had, 20 locations, 7 different ERPs, and the roles and accesses so out of whack that they have to hire somebody just to come in and get the role straight first. And it took me 3 months with another guy to get their role straight. And they kept, this is the scary part, they kept changing as we were fixing them. So somebody had elevated access we were taking it away as fast as they could put it back. And literally it took us, they had a script that was changing access faster than we could fix it. So with this tool, we would be definitely on top of it and would know who actually changed it and how they changed it, what's the script, where it's located. But and those, that was a public company, and those were material weaknesses, which is the worst you could have. And those were combinations of other significant deficiencies that got combined into a material weakness. And auditors, external auditors, do not like seeing those, because they start to think about, is this company going to be in business in the next quarter, right? A material weakness means the company could go away if something was realized.
So I've seen, to that extent, but, organizations, thousands of users, that the groups to manage the applications and the access is almost a tenfold to the actual number of users. So if you have an organization with 5,000 employees, you may have 20,000 groups. And so, managing that nest of permissions and access when you have that much it's numbing. There's no way to get through it without a tool.
Yeah. So William, given that IGA tools exist, so do most companies have a full-blown IGA system?
Absolutely not. I've seen that most companies will have an IAM tool, probably linked to HR for hiring, onboarding, offboarding. But as far as an IGA, absolutely not. I think the big thing is even more premature than that is a lot of companies don't even have an inventory of applications and what applications each role needs, and so it's a very ad hoc scenario. So I think with IGA, it can definitely help in every aspect on defining and moving roles. I've seen users with, they've been with a company, moved up in the ranks, and they still have access that they had from a decade ago that they shouldn't have. And so no, and all the companies I've worked with, I've seen very, very few that have IGA at all.
So, Paul, I know you mentioned this before, but what do enterprises wind up doing for the identity audit part of the IGA process?
I think we lost him.
Oh,
yeah.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, there you go.
I like the question. So what do they do instead of an IGA tool? How do they do it without a tool? It's near impossible. Yeah. You can't do it. Yeah. So I think, I've audited all sizes and shapes of companies, and some of them with 1 to 200 users, it might take them a week or two to get through a user access review. And that's not a problem. It's when you get to these larger companies and multiple applications. We've talked about this before, that there's these thing called siloed apps, and they're applications that are not, they have their own identity store inside the application. It's not connected to AD. It's not connected to Okta. It's not connected to some other identity store. So that's truly unmanaged. The IT guys sometimes the IT guys don't have access to those applications. And they say, don't touch this application, IT. We don't want you touching it. So, and maybe it's a financial reporting application that does all the numbers for the entire company, the roll-ups and all the divisions. And so those never get reviewed, and they start to get combined access rights, right? So more users will just get more and more rights. They move around in the company, and then before you know it, the lady in AP has access to everything. It's really kind of fun, and it's when you're an auditor, you have to do what we call a detailed access review and confirm that the company is actually doing that level of detail. And sometimes they're just doing a checkbox review saying, yeah, it's good, but there's no detail to it. So it's truly a useless activity. It's not even quality. So we've gotten, as an internal audit, we try to help the companies understand the level of detail they have to review. Who does the review? Craig, you mentioned it. It can't be the IT guy. It's got to be a manager, a supervisor, department head, somebody like that knows the users and what that access role can actually do. And sometimes, like in these giant ERPs, there's no way that even the supervisor or the manager knows what that role can actually do. It's just beyond their comprehension because there's so many roles. As William mentioned, those roles can be so expansive and so granular that one user might have, 100 roles attached to a user, and it's just very overwhelming.
And I think I heard a statistic the other day that 10 years ago most companies had, let's say 50 or 60 SaaS applications. And now that number is that the average business now has over 1,200 SaaS applications. So I think, to your point, talking about the siloed applications, if the average business now is at almost 1,200 applications, those are going to be all siloed SaaS apps, one department, one user, small groups. And so the problem is just getting bigger.
So, Craig, is it true that many companies are still using spreadsheets or PDFs for their audits?
Oh, absolutely. I think most still are. I also think that those companies would look at an IGA and go, oh, that's a great idea. I love that. And then see the price, get sticker shock and go, yeah, you know how many spreadsheets we could create for, 200 grand? We'll stick with the spreadsheets. And I think that the situation creates a vicious circle that continues to get worse. William mentioned, you'll be lucky if you have a list of applications. Well, you'll be lucky if you have a list of applications. You'll be even luckier if you have a list of application owners to go with those applications. And I've seen this a lot. And I also see other applications like NetSuite that has what I call the 1 foot on the dock and 1 foot on the boat problem. Sorry, Garrett, I hate to mention boats again. But that problem is that you have some access that's controlled by like an Okta or Active Directory, but then you have other other access that is direct. And people like Paul will come into my office and say, hey, give me a list of access for NetSuite. And I'll give him this list. And he'll say, well, what about direct access? I'd say, yes, sorry, we don't manage that. That's on the finance team. And that just creates a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm. Very
so,
true.
William, as a security professional, this manual process of account reviews with spreadsheets and emails, does this open companies up to security risk of missing orphan and ghost accounts?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been through audits where, it's, show me the termination list and then also show me, when the accounts were terminated and the process that happens. And so, part of this, is tied to that process, but it's also onto the cybersecurity side. You have accounts, let's say third parties, vendors, former employees, service accounts that, the account and access has not been looked at for, 5 or 10 years. And so all of that opens up the these identities to be hacked. I mean, we've all seen the chart of how long it takes passwords to be cracked based on length and complexity, but you've got to think when you have a lot of these accounts that haven't had a password changed in 10 years. I mean, you could have a data leak that happened a decade ago that, guess what, they've now broken that password, and now they're in and you don't even know it. And so, absolutely. It opens up to identity hacks. It opens it up to, access that has been there that has not been reviewed. Think of the global administrator account in AD. Most companies don't go in and monitor that account. It can't log in directly, but it's got major permissions. But the password is, maybe stored on a piece of paper.
When you're saying a hacker may hypothetically want to get to the admin accounts of AD,
that's not. Yeah, that's not
a casino.
That's not hypothetical. That's that's a given.
And we don't want to make light of it, but yes.
One of the favorite tools is Mimikatz, which is all about privilege access, hashing the hash.
Right.
I think the hackers have gotten advanced enough that identity is where they're targeting, because if they can get the access, they don't need malware. Malware is just a distraction.
Identity is the target. Love it. William.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Garrett, there should be a better way to do these identity audits. What do you think?
Yeah, and William, because he's a security guy, just set it up. Okay, he said straight out, come on, guys, we can throw as much, malware protection as we want on our devices, right? Or just put another acronym before DR, MDR, XDR, etc. We can just keep going. It doesn't matter if they're stealing the identities, right? It doesn't matter if there's no controls on the IAMs. And we just did on Tuesday this week on why IAMs are so important, and then how plugins are needed for the IAM to ensure that information that's in there, one, is correct, not overprivileged, and also the trigger on it if there's big changes. And these plugins should be easy. I mean, gosh, how long does it take us to plug in our YouAttest tool into an IAM, say an Okta, Azure AD, a Ping, JumpCloud?
That's 10 minutes, but if you don't want to call me a liar, I'll just go with 20 or maybe 30 minutes. But that's what 10 minutes is what I have experienced.
Just using the SAML or OIDC single sign-on, and that's the answer, Ashley.
Exactly.
Is that what the IAMs need, right? Is they need plugins like YouAttest in there to make sure that the roles aren't changing and the policies aren't changing, and that then it also meets the William need of the security, but then it also conducts a real access review, so when the external auditor doesn't laugh at the work that Craig's doing, right? Saying that's a nice PDF, but that's not an access review. Anyways, take it away.
Oh, William, do most of your customers have IAMs?
Pretty much every single one of them. I think even the ones that don't say they have it, they do. Because every business that I've ever worked with is, small or large, take the 5-person company up to, the 5,000 plus user companies. They're all in Google Workspace or Office 365. And both of those, when you create the organization, it's automatically has an IDP built in. Now, there's different levels, but every single one of them has IDP built in at that point. So yes, every organization, there's always the the real small guys that are using their at Gmail or at Live or things like that. But for the most part, pretty much every business is going to have some form of an IAM, even if they haven't gone in to configure it and touch it.
So, Garrett, what do the IAMs have that make them an ideal resource for the basis of an identity audit?
It's exactly as William said. They have it, first of all. That's where the identity is. And then William, brought up what they are. They're an IDP. They're an identity provider, which means usually technically that the resources, your Salesforce, your Concur, your Workday, your whatever, can redirect to the IDP to obtain their authentication and identity. The whole idea was the last 20 years, everyone said, wow, we have an identity here, 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 and here. That's just nuts. Let's consolidate them and then use token passing, session token passing like SAML, et cetera, to OIDC, et cetera, to accept that. And everyone does it every day. That's what you all have IDPs right now. You're all using, Facebook or your Google log on to whatever. right? That's exactly what the corporate is. And what does that do? That's great. It simplifies the authentication problem, simplifies the SSO problem, but just as Bonnie and Clyde said, or whoever it was, that's where the hackers are going because that's where the identities are. To paraphrase. I don't know if Bonnie and Clyde really were SAML proficient.
Oh yeah. Well, they weren't SAML, but I know those banks, and that's where the money is. So they rob banks.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for getting me out of that one. Appreciate it.
Yeah, seen it.
Go for it, Ashley.
So, Craig, seeing that you've used YouAttest in multiple enterprises, what information from the IAMs have you seen YouAttest use to conduct your identity audits?
Sorry, you broke up. What was the second part of that question?
What information from the IAMs have you seen YouAttest use to conduct your identity audits?
Well, I've used a lot of different information. It really depends on, and stop me if I'm not answering this directly, but I think it really depends on the HR system that you use. In our case, we use Dayforce, so it really depends on what you get out of that, because of how we have to then take that data, massage it, and compare it to other like applications or management like AD or Okta in our case.
And William, do you think this could be deployed to more of your customers?
Oh, absolutely. I think, having IAM everywhere, that's one thing. We just established everybody has it, even if they don't know they do. Yeah. I think yes, it can be an easy plug-in. I think that, looking at the regulations, it's getting bigger. We've already mentioned SOC 2. You've got PCI version 4, you've got CMMC and some of these others. So pretty much every business is going to be regulated in some way or another here, in the next, few years. Even the IT MSP market is, under government scrutiny after some hacks. So I think that, yes, the access review, the IGA, that's everybody's going to need it. And so, yes, I think it's an easy win for, the vast majority of my customers.
Paul, would this design address identity compliance issues in the enterprises that you're currently working with? Paul?
Oh, we lost him again.
Mute. There you go.
Paul, there we go. Oh, we lost your audio, Paul.
Aren't all the telecommunication companies located in Dallas? There you go.
That's what happens when you buy a headset under the bridge.
That's right. All right. We'll move on, and Paul, talk to us when you can. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
So, no, we got you.
I'm here. Yeah. So, yes, this would meet the compliance requirements for a user access review. No problem, including all of those regulations that William mentioned, plus others. So I think just the whole point of doing a review, in a good quality review, YouAttest would definitely make that point and actually provide what I call audit evidence, which is usually very hard to produce effectively and quality. So I think, when you have this opportunity to see how the user was reviewed, who did the review, time stamped, all that kind of information, it is truly what we call, provided by client, which is a piece of audit evidence. The IT guys, the companies, start to really feel good about it. And they say, yeah, we do a really good review. Here it is. And it can be PDF'd and sent anywhere. It really becomes a perfect piece of audit evidence.
Yeah.
So Garrett, let's show a quick slide of how YouAttest works, and then let's do a demo.
Love it. So here's your IAM. Okay, this is what our we were just said. William said that this is what everyone has, and they do. Everyone has some type of IAM and has the IAM manager, who Craig told us should not be doing a review. Right? He's just saying these are what's in our store. Okay, great. we do the SAML SSO, which Kashif was saying, hey, whatever, that takes me 10 minutes at most to integrate. Rock and roll, you got it integrated. From there, we take, remember what Paul said, those siloed resources. We need to take all of them, not just the ones that are in the Okta, Azure AD, the JumpCloud, the Ping, but all the resources, everything else. We got some agents, and it's trivial for us to make more. We're just pumping in through CSVs. We got one customer putting up 65 megabytes of CSVs in us. Now game on. As William implied, all these companies are now on enterprises are under some kind of regulation, which means there should be someone who has a concept of running risk management, okay? Either internal or external. We've got excellent people like Paul on the call who will help you out in managing this for you, okay? So the risk manager gets onto the YouAttest product, runs an access review, and as Craig said, those users and the reviewers come from what you already have. That's the genius of the product. See this? It's taking the reviewers, your managers, from your Azure AD, from your Okta, from your PingOne, right? Using them as your reviewers, and they just got a Slack message us, they just got an email message, and they provide the evidence that Paul said is needed, and Craig knows is needed, and William knows is helping making the enterprise secure. That evidence, of course, is then submitted for your compliance measure. There you go. Rock and roll. And
perfect.
I should give royalties to old John Madden there. Thank you.
So Kashyap, can you please show a demo?
You got that one. Yes.
Let's do since we just released our integration to Ping's cloud offering, let's do a demo of YouAttest identity review with PingOne.
And just because, and yes, Ashley, we will do the PingOne. Kashyap, can you also show the triggers? First show the triggers, because not to make light of it, the IAMs are under attack, right?
Yeah, triggers are huge.
Should have triggers on IAMs that say something there, policy change, or just show like a group change, how we would do that, okay?
Right.
So
yeah, I'll just start off. I'll just start off with the triggers.
Yeah.
I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah, we hear you fine. We see your screen. You're doing great.
That's perfect. So this is one of my tenants. It's integrated tightly with one of my Okta environments. So apart from the audits, if there is any change that occurs within your Okta environment, if somebody is removed from a group or added to a group or given access to an application, or they have removed access for a certain group or application, you can know that, or you can be notified about this in real time through these triggers. These triggers work, they're based off of Okta webhooks. So whenever there is some change in Okta, you get to know that first, being the admin. So here's how you can set up in YouAttest, how you can set up these triggers. All you have to do is select your Okta environment, and then you have to just select the conditions that whenever they meet, you will be the first one to get the alert. And not only the alert, the tool will also create a campaign, an audit campaign for you to review, whether you would like to grant that access to that ID, or no, you would like to just keep it the way it is and not let that person get into that application or that group. That will be up to you. So for example, here, there is a group that you would like to know whenever there is a user added, as well as whenever there is a user removed from either that particular group, or if you leave it blank, it will encompass all the groups that exist inside your Okta environment. So it will go through each and every group in there and see where did the change occur in terms of addition or removal, and it will come back to you with a campaign created, and not only campaign created by the system, but also it will assign that campaign to the desired user of that Okta environment. It could be the manager.
I have to throw this out there to Craig and Paul and William. That's the way you stop privilege creep. Wouldn't you guys agree? Right?
Well,
You
yeah,
put a
totally.
trigger in it.
Well, not only that, Garrett, but I think the important thing for me in my experience is that when the trigger is turned on, it narrows the window of response time from, like in my SOX example, when I would do it on a quarterly basis, from 3 months to 30 minutes.
Yeah,
That's pretty good. I can't do my math that quick, but that's a big increase. Perfect.
yeah. So you can choose whoever you want to assign this to whenever the system creates that trigger and campaign out of that trigger, and send email alerts to either Okta group or send emails to individual users. Decide whether it's how critical it is. Is it just the severity level, it's warning, it's just an info, or it's very critical. So you can choose the level of intensity that event will have. And then once you save the trigger, as soon as this condition is met inside Okta, you will see an audit created under event audits. And that will be based on these triggers that you have just set in. So it will show you if there is a user who had got access to something, to a group or to an application. It will show you more details, what happened in there. So the user status is active. What happened? It create Okta user. So they have created a user in Okta that you are being notified of. Now it's up to you as an admin or as a manager, if you delegate it out to the manager, to decide whether this access should be granted, certified, or it should be removed or revoked. And you have the control in that case, where nobody else, without letting you know, without you being informed about it, can get into the system. Right, Garrett? Anything else?
No, that's great.
Okay.
So just for the audience, show, our latest IAM integration. Show the PingOne, if you would, please. Just give an overview of that, and then we'll have Ashley walk us off.
Yeah, and just as Garrett mentioned, and he asked me a question, which I honestly answered, it takes only 10 to 30 minutes to be safe, to be on the safe side. I'll just be conservative and say 30 minutes, because all the heavy lifting is being done at the back end, right? So you don't have to do all that heavy lifting. What we need from the clients is just these 3 or 4 pieces of information: the API key, which a PingOne admin will have readily available if he has access to the system as an admin; environment ID, client ID. That's it. Once you provide us these 3 pieces of information along with the PingOne URL, within 10 minutes, your basic API integration is done. And now what this means is you are now able to run these audits here based on the use cases. If you want to see the application and users having access to those applications inside PingOne environment, you want to see the group audit, or you want to see the user audit. And the way it works is, after the integration, you will see all the applications listed that are inside your PingOne identity system. They will show up and line up like this over here in the YouAttest. So you can choose in bulk or as a single application, single target application. For example, this is a finance application. You're targeting to see who has access to this application within the environment. And this tool fetches that information, only the metadata, not the credentials, just the metadata, to show you who are these people, what is their email ID, which is a unique identifier, who's their manager. And by the way, PingOne, basically they don't provide the manager information. We fetch that information from the custom attributes they have, so we can now show the manager information here as well for you to delegate out to. So if that's there, you will see other details under the more detailed tab, including the status, including the last login if it's available, the title, the profile, everything is there. Now it's up to you whether you want to delegate it out to the people out there manually, or you want to do an auto delegation. What auto delegation does, it fetches, or it picks up these managers from the user profile, and it starts pushing out emails to those individuals, letting them know that this is what they need to do. A task is waiting for you, and they get an email in their inbox which looks something like this. I'll get it in real time, but this is what it looks like. As a manager, as a reviewer, I'll get this email along with, here we go. I have this in real time. And as a manager, I'll just click on the link. That's all I have to do to get into that campaign. And then just by clicking through the GUI, I will just enable my my reviewer status to do the attestation for this one person that's been assigned to me, right? So this person reports to me. I'll just go ahead. I'm good with his access, certify it, and that's all I have to do. It will show the action taken by me. My email ID will be there. I'm responsible for this change, for this action, and most importantly, the timestamp that will also be part of the evidence that we will create at the end. You can also put in comments to justify your action, and that comment will also be part of the report. So that's all we have to do to create this, the evidence report at the end. So once you complete this, this is the evidence you get along with the comment section here to justify your action, the timestamp, the action taken, and the basic profile attributes of every user. And you can present it to the auditors, internal or external, and get your access review done.
You rock. And that's really just it. Is that better than a PDF, Craig?
Much better than a PDF.
Take it away, Ashley.
Perfect. Thanks, Kashif. So let's go around the room and have the guests tell us how they can get in touch with them. So Paul, let's start with you. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, I hope you can hear me. So
yes.
Apologies for the technical difficulties. Yes. So you can go to LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn, no problem. Or you go to the website or email me, pfeather@compu-netics.com. Try not to take text messages or phone calls. There's so many of those during the day, but I have had those from C-suite folks that have this kind of problem. I've had those calls before and happy to take them, no problem.
And William, how can people get a hold of you at Logos?
Sure. So our website is logos.systems, or they can find me on LinkedIn, or email is will@logos.systems.
Perfect. And then us at YouAttest, please contact us at info@youattest.com, and we'll execute on your identity governance for anti-ransomware and compliance needs. Thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And most importantly,
Thank you.
Thank you, guest, and thank you, Ashley, for putting up with us for the last 45 minutes. Appreciate your help. Right, Greg?
No problem.
Okay. All the best. Look forward to the questions, all that. Talk to you.
Thank you.